Okay, so this is going to be probably the last animal ethics lecture for today. And again, usually in the live versions of class, we can kind of space this over a couple of days because there's a lot to say here. And this usually gets, again, a lot of various perspectives brought to the table. And especially kind of living in, kind of rural Idaho where many, I'm sure, watching this video have grown up hunting and have lots of views on kind of the treatment of non human animals. We have kind of that ideology of kind of bringing those perspectives to the table. But then I also have, and I'm sure that there's many of you watching that are passionate vegetarians and passionate vegans for maybe grounds that you're agreeing here with on Singer. So again, there's so many perspectives to this topic, and sometimes, I mean, like honestly, sometimes this topic is sometimes the most contentious in the whole class, even more so than some of our discussions of a couple of weeks ago. But what I want to do is I want to kind of read here what Singer talks about, where essentially he then takes this approach of again claiming the fact that we inflict such pain on sentient beings for our own ends, for merely matters of taste, okay? Like taste, like what we like to eat, that is not defensible, okay? It's very difficult to defend that act. And he makes the radical claim, I would say, and maybe some of you would agree, maybe some of you disagree, but he says that ultimately what this yields is what he calls speciesism. So, like any sort of ism, speciesism is again this kind of um, outlook of privileging one species over another, thereby justifying behavior towards the underrepresented, underprivileged species. Okay? And so I'm going to just kind of read a couple paragraphs here from your article, just so you can have a pretty good effect here of what Singer's talking about, especially if some of you don't have the book. And then I'll kind of finish it up. For the great majority of human beings, especially in urban, industrialized societies, the most direct form of contact with members of other species is meal times. We eat them. In doing so, we treat them purely as a means to our own ends. We regard their life and well-being as subordinate to our taste for a particular kind of dish. I say taste deliberately. This is purely a matter of pleasing our palate. There can be no defense of eating flesh in terms of satisfying nutritional needs, since it has been established beyond doubt that we could satisfy our own need for protein and other essential nutrients far more efficiently with a diet that replaced animal flesh with soybeans or products derived from soybeans and other high protein vegetable products. And again, this is a conversation that gets a lot of people very passionate because we often hear this kind of dialogue in these kind of conversations where, oh well, we have to, we're meat eaters, it's therefore justifiable to eat all of the animals that we do because they're high in protein. We need high protein diets because that makes us stronger, that makes us again kind of part of our own physiological demands. And then many point to the fact that reducing meat, reducing any sort of kind of meat-based diet and replacing it with a more kind of plant-based diet is one, maybe healthier, two, maybe more sustainable in the long run. And again, these conversations are very lively, and I encourage you to have them with your family and friends, and respond maybe accordingly to a reflection, if there were to be one, about this topic. It is not merely the act of killing that indicates that we are ready to do to other species in order to gratify our tastes. The suffering we inflict on the animals while they are alive is perhaps an even clearer indication of our speciesism than the fact that we are prepared to kill them. And so what he here has in mind, I think a lot of us are familiar with some images, but you think about really crowded um, uh, cattle, I'm blanking on the term, really crowded kind of cattle pens, really crowded chicken feeds, etc., right? Where it's just like the conditions of the animals in no way can be healthy or good, right? And this is again where Singer continues. None of these practices cater for anything more than our pleasures of taste. Our practice of rearing and killing other animals in order to eat them is a clear instance of the sacrifice of the most important interests of other beings in order to satisfy trivial interests of our own. To avoid speciesism, we must stop this practice, and each of us has a moral obligation to cease supporting the practice. Okay? And so again, this idea of like a moral obligation, that if at all we care about animal suffering, if at all we care about what animals feel, maybe we'll be persuaded on those grounds to maybe alter our purchasing power, altering our diets, altering what we support, because ultimately it is not morally justifiable. According to Singer, it is not morally justifiable to support a system that continues to create and promote suffering on sentient beings. Okay? I know that's kind of a hard argument. I know that that's kind of a passionate argument, but hopefully this gives you all, again, kind of conversations to consider, outlooks to consider, and I hope that you all enjoy your dinner later tonight.